Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the alien ships approach Earth's moon. The vessels were beautiful in a way that human ships could never be. They moved like silver fish through the black water of space, their hulls smooth and gleaming under the distant sun. "First contact protocol is active," said Admiral Chen over the comm system. "All defense platforms are on standby, but weapons are powered down. We don't want to look threatening." Elena almost laughed at that. Threatening? The human fleet consisted of 12 outdated patrol boats and a handful of cargo haulers. If these aliens wanted to destroy Earth, there was nothing humans could do to stop them. The lead alien vessel was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. It docked, with Luna Station using technology that made the station's systems look like stone tools. When the airlock opened, Elena got her first look at Earth's visitors. The Zephyrians were tall, maybe 8 feet, with bodies that looked like they were made of living crystal. Light moved through their transparent skin in patterns that might have been their way of showing emotion. Their leader introduced himself as Trademaster HFY. His voice came through a translator device that made him sound like he was speaking from the bottom of a well. "Greetings, primitive ones," HFY said. Elena noticed he didn't use the word humans or even ask what they called themselves. "We are representatives of the Galactic Trade Consortium. We have come to offer your species a great opportunity." Admiral Chen stepped forward. He was a small man compared to the alien, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had spent 40 years in Earth's Navy. "We welcome you to our system, Trademaster. What kind of opportunity?" HFY's crystal body flickered with what Elena thought might be amusement. "Your world is rich in minerals that are valuable to the greater galaxy. We also understand your species has developed interesting manufacturing techniques. We are prepared to offer you a trade agreement." "What are you offering in return?" Chen asked. "Protection," HFY said, "and the tools you need to defend yourselves. The galaxy is a dangerous place for a young species. There are others who would simply take what they want from your world without offering anything in return." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The alien's words sounded like a threat wrapped in a gift. HFY gestured to one of his companions, who activated a holographic display. It showed a dozen spaceships, clearly military vessels with weapon systems and armor plating. They looked ancient compared to the Zephyrian ships, but they were still far beyond anything Earth could build. "These are Kestrel-class frigates," HFY explained. "They are perfectly adequate for a species at your level of development. In exchange, we would like mining rights to 3 of your asteroid belts and access to your manufacturing facilities for certain projects." Admiral Chen studied the display. Elena could see him doing the math in his head. Earth needed those ships, desperately. The planet's expansion into space had been limited by their lack of real military vessels. These frigates would give Earth the ability to patrol its space and protect its colonies. But the price was steep. The asteroid belts contained enough rare metals to power Earth's economy for centuries, and giving aliens access to human manufacturing meant sharing Earth's industrial secrets. "We'll need time to consider your offer," Chen said. HFY's body flashed with a color Elena had never seen before. "Of course, but do not take too long. Other species have shown interest in this region of space. It would be unfortunate if you found yourselves without protection when they arrive." After the aliens left to wait in their ship, Elena joined Admiral Chen and his senior staff in the conference room. The mood was tense. "It's extortion," said General Morrison from Earth Defense Command. "They're basically saying, pay us or someone worse will come along." "Maybe," Chen said, "but those ships are real, and right now, we don't have anything that could stand up to a real military force." Elena looked at the technical data the aliens had provided. The ships were old, that much was obvious. The reactor designs looked inefficient, and the weapon systems were clearly outdated, even by alien standards. But they were still far beyond Earth's current capabilities. "Admiral, what if this is a test?" she asked. "What if they want to see how we handle their technology?" "Then we better pass," Chen replied. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb had been quiet during the meeting, but now he spoke up. "Sir, I'd like permission to examine those ships in detail before we make any decisions." "What are you thinking, Marcus?" Chen asked. Webb was a thin man with gray hair and hands that were always stained with machine oil. He had been building and fixing spaceships longer than anyone else in the Earth fleet. "I'm thinking that every piece of technology teaches you something, even old technology, maybe especially old technology." 3 days later, the trade agreement was signed. Earth gave up mining rights to 3 asteroid belts and agreed to manufacture certain components for Zephyrian use. In return, 12 Kestrel-class frigates were transferred to Earth's Navy. Elena was assigned to command the lead ship, which Earth's Navy designated as EFS Determination. The moment she stepped aboard, she knew the aliens had cheated them. The ship was falling apart. Not obviously, but in the way that only someone who understood machinery could see. The hull plates were corroded around the edges. The reactor containment showed signs of stress fractures. The weapon systems had been jury-rigged so many times that Elena wasn't sure they would fire without exploding. "How old do you think this ship is?" she asked Webb, who had come aboard to assess their new acquisition. Webb ran his hand along a wall panel and shook his head. "Based on the metal fatigue, I'd say at least 50 years. Maybe longer. They sold us their garbage, Captain." But Webb didn't sound angry, he sounded excited. "Why are you smiling, Marcus?" Elena asked. "Because garbage tells you everything about the people who threw it away," Webb said. "Look at this power coupling. See how they connected it? That's not the most efficient way, but it's the safest. These aliens, they're more worried about their ships not blowing up than they are about getting maximum performance." Webb continued his examination, pointing out details that Elena would never have noticed. The aliens built their ships to last, but not to fight hard. Their technology was sophisticated but conservative. They were clearly more concerned with avoiding risk than with pushing the boundaries of what was possible. "The reactor system is fascinating," Webb said. "It's completely different from our fusion plants, but the basic principles are the same. And see this?" He pointed to a series of conduits. "They're using magnetic containment, but they're doing it all wrong. We could probably increase the power output by 30% just by rerouting the field generators." Elena began to understand why Webb was excited. The aliens hadn't just sold Earth a fleet of old ships. They had given Earth a complete technical education in galactic technology. Every system on these ships was a lesson in how aliens thought about engineering problems. As the Determination limped back toward Earth, Elena found herself thinking about Trademaster Vexhai. The alien had called humans primitive and treated Earth like a backwater planet full of simple creatures who should be grateful for whatever scraps they were offered. Maybe he was right about humans being primitive. But Elena had spent enough time around engineers to know that primitive didn't mean stupid. It just meant you were starting from a different place. And sometimes starting from a different place meant you could see solutions that others had missed. The aliens had given Earth 12 ships. What they didn't know was that they had also given Earth something much more valuable, a complete blueprint for galactic military technology, along with a very clear demonstration of where that technology could be improved. Elena smiled as she watched Earth grow larger in the viewport. The aliens thought they had bought themselves a dependent client species. Instead, they had just given their biggest potential competitor a detailed look at all their weaknesses. 6 months after the trade deal, Marcus Webb stood in the center of the largest engineering bay on Luna Station. Around him, the 12 alien ships had been completely torn apart. Every component, every wire, every bolt had been removed, cataloged, and studied. The bay looked like a massive jigsaw puzzle. Alien technology was spread across hundreds of tables with teams of engineers working to understand how each piece functioned. Webb had requested the best minds from every major university and corporation on Earth. NASA, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, SpaceX, even automotive engineers from Tesla and Toyota. Everyone had something to contribute. "Status report," Webb said to Dr. Sarah Kim, who was leading the power systems team. Dr. Kim was a fusion specialist who had spent the last decade trying to solve Earth's energy problems. Now she was elbow-deep in alien reactor technology, and she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. "The containment system is brilliant but inefficient," she said. holding up a crystalline component that glowed with its own internal light. They use a magnetic field that's perfectly stable, but it requires 3 times more energy than it should. Look at this. She led Webb to a computer display showing the alien reactor design next to a human fusion plant schematic. They're containing the plasma in a perfect sphere, which prevents any possibility of containment failure, but a sphere is the worst possible shape for energy extraction. If we used our magnetic plasma research and shaped the containment field like this, she manipulated the display, showing an elongated field shape. We could increase power output by 200%. Webb nodded and moved to the next station, where Colonel James Harrison was examining the weapon systems. Harrison was a career military officer who had spent his life studying how to destroy things efficiently. The aliens are using particle beam weapons, Harrison explained. Basically, they accelerate charged particles to near light speed and fire them at targets. The concept is sound, but the execution is terrible. Harrison pointed to a weapon component that was larger than a refrigerator. This thing weighs 5 tons and can fire once every 30 seconds. We built experimental laser systems 20 years ago that were smaller and more powerful. The aliens seem to have taken the approach of making everything bigger instead of making it better. Webb frowned. Why would they do that? They're clearly more advanced than us. Because they don't have to worry about efficiency, Harrison said. Look at their ships, they're huge. They have unlimited space and unlimited power, so they just built everything oversized. But that also means everything is overbuilt. If we can miniaturize their technology using our manufacturing techniques, we could fit twice as many weapons on a ship half the size. Webb continued his tour, stopping at each research station. The navigation systems used principles that Earth's scientists had theorized but never been able to test. The communication arrays operated on quantum frequencies that human technology couldn't even detect. The life support systems were so advanced, they could probably keep a crew alive for decades without resupply. But in every case, the alien technology was built for durability and safety, not for performance or efficiency. At the materials science station, Webb found his daughter Lisa working with a team from MIT. Lisa was only 25, but she had already earned 2 engineering degrees and was working on her doctorate in advanced materials. Webb tried not to play favorites, but he was proud of how quickly she had grasped the alien technology. "Dad, you need to see this," Lisa said, holding up 2 metal samples. One was from an alien ship's hull, the other was from a human spacecraft. The alien material is incredible. It's lighter than aluminum but stronger than titanium. The molecular structure is unlike anything we've ever seen. "Can we reproduce it?" Webb asked. "That's the problem," Lisa said. "We can't reproduce the material, but we don't need to. Look at this." She led him to a testing apparatus where a small piece of hybrid construction was being subjected to stress tests. "I combined alien materials with human construction techniques. Instead of trying to make our materials as good as theirs, I used their materials in ways they never thought of." Webb watched as the hybrid construction withstood pressure that would have crushed either human or alien materials individually. "How?" "The aliens build everything in single pieces," Lisa explained. "They grow their hull materials like crystals, which makes them very strong but also very uniform. Human construction uses joints, welds, and fasteners, which they probably see as weak points. But those weak points actually allow for distribution of stress in ways that uniform materials can't handle." Webb was beginning to see a pattern. The aliens had advanced technology, but they approached engineering problems very differently than humans did. They sought perfection in individual components, while humans focused on making systems work together efficiently. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Webb was in his office reviewing progress reports when Lisa burst in without knocking. "Dad, we did it," she said, out of breath from running. "We built a hybrid reactor." Webb followed her to the testing facility, where a reactor the size of a small car was humming quietly. It didn't look like much, but the power readings on the displays made Webb's eyes widen. "How much power is it producing?" he asked. 3 times the output of the original alien reactor, Dr. Kim said. She looked exhausted but triumphant. "We used their containment technology but applied human magnetic field theory. Instead of a perfect sphere, we're containing the plasma in a dynamic field that shifts shape to optimize energy extraction." Webb stared at the readings. This is impossible. We've only been studying their technology for 6 months. It's not impossible, it's just different, Lisa said. The aliens perfected their technology millions of years ago, and then stopped innovating. They're not looking for better ways to do things because their ways already work. But we're still learning, still trying new approaches. Dr. Kim nodded. Their reactor design hasn't changed in probably thousands of years. Why would it? It's perfectly safe and reliable, but humans have always been willing to accept a little risk in exchange for better performance. Webb looked around the testing facility. Human and alien technology was integrated everywhere, but it was clear that the humans were the ones driving the innovation. The aliens had given Earth the building blocks, but Earth's engineers were using those blocks to build something completely new. How long before we can build a ship around this reactor? Webb asked. The reactor is ready now, Dr. Kim said. Colonel Harrison's team has miniaturized the weapon systems. Navigation and communications are actually easier to build than the alien versions once you understand the principles. The real question is hull construction. Lisa smiled. I've been working on that too. We can't grow hull materials like the aliens do, but we can build them. Using human construction techniques with alien materials, we can make a hull that's lighter and stronger than anything the aliens have. Webb felt the excitement building in his chest. For 6 months, Earth's best minds had been learning from alien technology. Now they were ready to improve on it. How long to build a prototype ship? He asked. Give us another 6 months, Lisa said. But Dad, it won't look like an alien ship. It won't look like a human ship either. It's going to be something completely new. Webb nodded. The aliens had sold Earth 12 broken-down warships, thinking they were getting rid of their garbage, while gaining a dependent client. They had no idea that they had just given Earth's engineers the greatest learning opportunity in human history. More importantly, they had no idea what humans could accomplish when they were given something to improve upon. Admiral Chen had authorized Project Forge the day after the hybrid reactor came online. Earth's shipyards were being retooled to build humanity's first indigenous warships. The aliens thought they had sold Earth some old frigates. What they had actually done was give Earth the knowledge needed to build ships that would make those frigates look like toys. Webb smiled as he looked at the progress reports. In 12 months, the galaxy would learn what happened when you gave human engineers a problem to solve. The aliens were about to discover that their biggest mistake wasn't selling Earth rusty ships. Their biggest mistake was assuming that humans would be satisfied with using them as they were. 18 months after first contact, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the EFS Defiance, humanity's first purpose-built warship. The bridge was nothing like the elegant curves of alien vessels, or even the cramped quarters of the old human patrol boats. Everything was angular, functional, and built for war. The Defiance was ugly by galactic standards. Where alien ships flowed like water, human ships looked like they had been assembled from geometric shapes and welded together by someone who cared more about function than beauty. The hull was thick and heavily armored, covered in sensor arrays, and weapon mounts that stuck out at odd angles. All systems green, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Chen, Admiral Chen's son. Reactor output is stable at 110% of design specifications. Elena nodded. The hybrid human-alien reactor was the heart of the ship, but everything else was purely human engineering. The weapons were miniaturized versions of alien particle beams, but they fired 3 times faster and hit twice as hard. The armor was alien materials built using human techniques, creating protection that could absorb damage that would destroy any known spacecraft. Navigation. Set course for the Proxima system, Elena ordered. It's time to see what this ship can really do. The Defiance was the first of 12 ships in Earth's new destroyer class. They were smaller than the alien frigates Earth had received, but they packed more firepower and could take more punishment. More importantly, they were built using human manufacturing techniques, which meant Earth could produce them quickly and in large numbers. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Elena thought about the past year and a half. Earth's shipyards had been working around the clock, and the results were impressive. Luna Station now had construction bays that could build a destroyer in 6 weeks. The orbital facilities around Mars were producing cruiser-class ships. Even Earth's moon-based factories were turning out patrol vessels and support ships, The aliens had taught Earth how to build spaceships, but humans had taught themselves how to build them better, faster, and cheaper. The Defiance dropped out of Bite FTL at the edge of the Proxima system, where a small human colony had been established to mine rare metals from the asteroid belt. What Elena saw on her sensors made her blood run cold. 3 ships were attacking the mining station. They were long and predatory-looking, nothing like the graceful Zephyrian vessels. These ships had to belong to the hegemony, the militaristic, alien empire that the Zephyrians had warned Earth about. "Captain, the mining station is requesting immediate assistance," reported the communications officer. "They're reporting heavy damage and multiple casualties." Elena didn't hesitate. "Battle stations. All hands to combat positions. Lieutenant Commander Chen, signal Earth that we have encountered hostile forces." The bridge lighting shifted to red. As the crew prepared for humanity's first real space battle, Elena felt her heart racing, but her hands were steady as she studied the tactical display. The hegemony ships were larger than the Defiance, with weapon systems that looked more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had shown Earth. But Elena had spent months training with the new ship's capabilities, and she knew what the Defiance could do. "Range to targets?" she asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy ships are ignoring our approach. They seem to be focused on the mining station." Elena understood why. To the hegemony, a single human ship probably didn't represent a serious threat. They had no way of knowing that Earth had spent the last year rebuilding alien technology from the ground up. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer announced. "Target the lead ship," Elena ordered. "Full power to forward particle beams. Let's show them what human engineering can do." The Defiance opened fire at maximum range, sending a concentrated beam of charged particles across space at near light speed. Elena watched the tactical display as the beam struck the hegemony vessel's shields. The alien ship's defensive systems flared and collapsed instantly. "Direct hit," the tactical officer reported, his voice filled with surprise. "Enemy shields are down. Hull damage detected." Elena smiled grimly. The aliens had built their weapons to be safe and reliable. Humans had built theirs to punch through any defense they encountered. The hegemony ships finally turned their attention to the Defiance, but they were clearly confused by what had just happened. Elena could almost imagine their confusion. How could a single ship from a primitive species destroy their shields with one shot? The enemy ships opened fire, sending waves of energy bolts toward the Defiance. Elena felt the ship shake as the alien weapons struck the hull. "Damage report," she called out. "Forward armor is holding," reported the engineering officer. "Some surface scoring, but no penetration. Hull integrity at 98%. Elena was impressed, but not surprised. Human engineers had built the Defiance's armor to absorb exactly this kind of punishment. Where alien ships relied on shields for protection, human ships were designed to take hits and keep fighting. "Return fire," Elena ordered. "Target all 3 ships. Show them what happens when they threaten human civilians." The Defiance unleashed its full weapons array. Particle beams lanced out from multiple weapon mounts, striking all 3 enemy vessels simultaneously. The human ship's targeting systems, based on military technology that Earth had been developing for decades, were far more accurate than anything the aliens had ever seen. The lead hegemony ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The second ship lost power and began drifting. The third ship tried to flee, but its engines had been damaged by the Defiance's concentrated fire. The entire battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. "All enemy ships destroyed or disabled," the tactical officer reported. "The mining station is signaling their thanks." Elena slumped back in her command chair, adrenaline still coursing through her system. Humanity had just won its first space battle, and it hadn't even been close. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. Word of this engagement would spread throughout the galaxy. Every alien species would want to know how a single human ship had destroyed a hegemony battle group without taking serious damage. Over the next 6 months, the Defiance and its sister ships patrolled human space, encountering alien vessels from a dozen different species. Some were merchants, some were explorers, and some were military scouts trying to assess Earth's new capabilities. All of them reported the same thing. Human ships fought like nothing they had ever encountered, where alien vessels were elegant, and graceful human ships were brutal and efficient. Where alien weapons were designed to disable opponents safely, human weapons were designed to destroy targets completely. Where alien armor was meant to deflect attacks, human armor was built to absorb massive damage and keep functioning. The galaxy was learning that humans approached warfare very differently than any other species. Captain Vasquez received a priority message from Earth while the Defiance was patrolling the outer edge of human space. Admiral Chen's face appeared on her screen, and he looked pleased. "Elena, I have good news," he said. "The shipyards have completed the first batch of production vessels. We now have 24 destroyers operational, with 12 more launching next month. More importantly, Luna Shipyards has just finished construction of our first heavy cruiser." Elena raised an eyebrow. "How heavy?" "The EFS Indomitable is 3 times the size of the Defiance and carries enough firepower to engage an entire alien fleet," Chen said. "We're also getting reports from our intelligence network that the Zephyrians are asking questions about our technology. It seems they're starting to worry that they may have made a mistake in their initial assessment of human capabilities." Elena smiled. The Zephyrians had treated Earth like a primitive backwater that should be grateful for whatever scraps they were offered. Now they were starting to realize that they had given those primitives everything they needed to become a serious military power. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Elena asked. "Continue your patrols," Chen said. "But Elena, I want you to know that you and the Defiance have changed everything. Word of your victories is spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species are starting to look at humanity very differently." After the transmission ended, Elena walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. 18 months ago, Earth had been a single planet with no real military presence in space. Now, human ships patrolled multiple star systems, protecting Earth's interests and showing the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The aliens had sold Earth 12 rusted warships, thinking they were taking advantage of a naive species. Instead, they had given Earth the foundation to build something that none of them had seen coming. Elena thought about Trademaster Vexhai and his condescending attitude. She wondered what he would think if he could see the Defiance now, or if he knew that Earth was producing warships faster than any other species in the galaxy. The students had not only learned from their teachers, they had surpassed them in ways the teachers never thought possible, and this was just the beginning. 2 years after first contact, Ambassador Patricia Chen stood in the command center of Titan Manufacturing Station, watching humanity's industrial revolution spread across the solar system. Patricia was Admiral Chen's daughter, but she had chosen diplomacy over military service. Now she was Earth's chief representative to the galactic community, and she was preparing for the most important negotiation in human history. Through the massive observation windows, Patricia could see the construction yards that stretched for hundreds of kilometers across Titan's orbit. Automated factories worked around the clock, assembling ships at a pace that would have been impossible just 2 years ago. The sound of construction echoed through the station's corridors. The hum of fusion welders, the clang of metal being shaped, and the whistle of atmospheric recyclers processing the air from a dozen different construction zones. "Status report," Patricia said to Director Williams, the Chief of Industrial Operations. Williams was a former automotive executive who had been recruited to apply mass production techniques to spacecraft construction. He looked exhausted, but pleased as he consulted his tablet. "We're currently operating at 120% of design capacity," he reported. "Luna Station is producing 1 destroyer every 4 days. The Mars orbital facilities are completing a cruiser every 2 weeks, and this station just finished our 3rd Dreadnought." Patricia nodded, but she was more interested in the numbers that weren't being reported. "What about total fleet strength?" "As of this morning, Earth has 437 operational warships," Williams said. "That includes 28 heavy cruisers and 3 dreadnoughts. We also have over 800 support vessels, cargo ships, and patrol boats." Patricia tried to keep her expression neutral, but internally she was amazed. 2 years ago, Earth's entire space fleet could have fit in a single hangar bay. Now humanity commanded more ships than most alien empires had built in centuries. The secret was Earth's approach to manufacturing. Where other species built ships one at a time using artisan techniques, humans had applied industrial mass production methods to spacecraft construction. Standardized components, assembly line techniques, and automated systems allowed Earth to build ships like consumer products. "Any word from the Galactic Trade Consortium?" Patricia asked. William smiled. "Trade. Master Vexhai has requested another meeting. Apparently he has some concerns about our expansion into the outer systems." Patricia laughed. The same alien who had condescended to sell Earth 12 broken ships was now worried about human expansion. The irony was not lost on her. "Schedule the meeting for tomorrow," she said, "and make sure he gets a full tour of the facilities before we sit down to talk." The next day, Trademaster Vexhai arrived at Titan Station with a small escort of Zephyrian officials. Patricia met them at the docking bay, where the contrast between alien and human approaches to space travel was immediately obvious. The Zephyrian ship was a work of art, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and change as the light hit them. It was beautiful, elegant, and clearly built by master craftsmen who had spent months on every detail. Docked next to it was a human cargo hauler that looked like it had been assembled from metal boxes and welded together by someone in a hurry. It was ugly, functional, and had obviously been built as quickly and cheaply as possible. But Patricia noticed that the human ship was larger, carried more cargo, and had arrived at the station faster than the alien vessel. "Ambassador Chen," Vexhai said through his translator. His crystal body was flickering with colors that Patricia's briefings had taught her indicated nervousness. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Of course, Trademaster," Patricia replied. "Would you like a tour of our facilities before we begin our discussions?" Vexhai's body flashed with what might have been reluctance, but he agreed. Patricia led the alien delegation through Titan Station, making sure they saw everything. In the reactor assembly bays, human workers were installing hybrid power plants that produced 3 times more energy than the original alien designs. In the weapons manufacturing sections, assembly lines were turning out particle beam arrays that were smaller, more powerful, and more reliable than anything the galaxy had seen before. But it was the ship construction areas that clearly shocked the aliens the most. Patricia brought them to an observation deck overlooking the main assembly floor, where 12 destroyers were being built simultaneously. Each ship moved along an assembly line, where teams of workers and automated systems installed weapons, armor, engines, and electronics with mechanical precision. "How long does it take to build one of these vessels?" asked one of Vexhai's companions. "From start to finish, about 3 weeks, Patricia said casually. "We could do it faster, but we don't want to sacrifice quality for speed." The aliens exchanged glances that Patricia's briefings told her indicated shock and disbelief. According to Earth's intelligence, most alien species took years to build a single warship. "This is impressive," Vexhai said finally. "But surely this level of production is not sustainable. You must be using up your resources at an alarming rate." Patricia smiled. "Actually, Trademaster, our production capacity is still growing. We're opening new facilities in the Alpha Centauri system next month, and we have plans for construction yards in 6 other systems by the end of the year." This was not entirely true, but it was close enough. Earth's industrial expansion was limited more by the time it took to transport equipment to new systems than by any lack of resources or manufacturing capability. After the tour, Patricia and Vexhai sat down in a conference room that overlooked the construction yards. Through the windows, they could see human ships moving in and out of the station in a constant stream of activity. "Ambassador Chen," Vexhai began, "the consortium is concerned about the pace of human expansion. In less than 2 years, your species has established a military presence in 7 star systems. This rapid growth is unusual." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Trademaster, when your people first came to Earth, you offered us protection in exchange for access to our resources. We accepted that offer gratefully, but we've discovered that the best protection comes from being able to protect ourselves." "Of course," Vexhai said. But the scale of your military buildup seems excessive for defensive purposes. Some members of the consortium are beginning to wonder if humanity has more aggressive intentions. Patricia studied the aliens' crystal features. The Zephyrians were clearly worried that they had created a monster they couldn't control. 2 years ago, they had seen Earth as a backward planet that would remain dependent on alien technology and protection. Now they were facing a species that was outproducing the entire galactic trade consortium combined. "Trade Master, let me be direct," Patricia said. 2 years ago, your people came to Earth and offered us a deal that was heavily weighted in your favor. You gave us 12 broken-down ships that were ready for the scrapyard, and in return you took mining rights to some of our most valuable asteroid belts. Vexhi's body flickered with colors that indicated embarrassment. "The ships were functional." "Barely," Patricia interrupted. "But we're not complaining. Those ships taught us everything we needed to know about galactic technology. And what we learned is that galactic technology isn't as advanced as we thought it would be." The room fell silent, except for the distant sounds of construction. Patricia let the silence stretch before continuing. "Your people have had faster-than-light travel for thousands of years, but you're still using reactor designs that waste 70% of their energy output. You have weapons that are less efficient than experimental systems Earth abandoned decades ago. Your manufacturing techniques are so slow that it takes you years to build what we can build in weeks." Vexhi's crystal body was now pulsing with rapid color changes that Patricia recognized as agitation. "Human manufacturing may be faster, but nothing," Patricia said. "Trade Master, your people made the mistake of thinking that older meant more advanced. You assumed that because you've been in space longer than us, you must know better than us. But the truth is that you stopped innovating long ago." Patricia stood and walked to the window, where a new Dreadnought was being launched from the construction bay. The massive ship was a kilometer long and bristled with enough weapons to destroy an entire fleet. "That ship," Patricia said, pointing to the Dreadnought, "incorporates design principles that your people never considered. It can outfight anything in the consortium fleet, and we can build 10 of them in the time it takes you to build 1 frigate." She turned back to face Vexhi. "So here's what's going to happen, Trade Master. Humanity is going to continue expanding. We're going to continue building ships, and we're going to continue developing technology that makes your advanced systems look like museum pieces." Vexhi's body was now a constant swirl of agitated colors. "The consortium will not tolerate aggressive expansion. The consortium will tolerate whatever humanity chooses to do," Patricia said calmly, "because the alternative is finding out what happens when you try to stop us." She walked back to her chair and sat down. "But we're not interested in conquest, Trade Master. We're interested in trade, real trade between..." 5 years after first contact, Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime, the ancient station that had served as the center of galactic government for over 10,000 years. The chamber was a massive sphere with seating arranged in concentric circles, designed to accommodate the diverse body types of dozens of alien species. Elena wore the dark blue uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with 5 stars on her collar, and ribbons representing victories in 17 different systems. Behind her, a holographic display showed the current deployment of human forces: 50 dreadnoughts, 300 heavy cruisers, and over 2,000 escort vessels, all built in the past 5 years. The numbers were impressive, but Elena knew they told only part of the story. What the display didn't show was that human industrial capacity was still growing. Earth's shipyards were now producing vessels faster than any empire in galactic history. The colony worlds were contributing their own manufacturing capabilities, and human technology was advancing at a pace that left other species struggling to keep up. At the center of the chamber sat the High Arbitrator, an ancient being whose species had been mediating galactic disputes since before most civilizations had developed space travel. Around the chamber, representatives of 43 different species watched Elena with expressions that ranged from curiosity to fear to respect. Admiral Vasquez, the High Arbitrator, spoke in a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "You have been called before this council to address concerns about humanity's rapid expansion and military buildup. Some members fear that your species represents a threat to galactic stability. Elena nodded respectfully. High Arbitrator, honored representatives, I appreciate the opportunity to address your concerns. But first, I think it's important to understand how we arrived at this point. She gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show the 12 Kestrel-class frigates that the Zephyrians had sold to Earth 5 years ago. These were the first alien ships humanity ever possessed, Elena said. They were old, broken, down, and barely functional. But they were also our introduction to galactic technology and our first lesson in how the galaxy views emerging species. The display changed to show Trademaster Vexhi's original presentation to Earth. Elena saw several alien representatives shift uncomfortably as they were reminded of the condescending tone and unfair terms of that first trade agreement. The Zephyrians saw Earth as a primitive world full of naive creatures who should be grateful for whatever scraps they were offered. Elena continued. They gave us outdated technology in exchange for valuable resources, assuming we would remain dependent on their charity for generations. Elena paused and looked around the chamber. They were wrong. The display shifted again, showing the transformation of human space over the past 5 years. Star systems that had been empty now hosted thriving colonies and massive industrial installations. Trade routes that had never existed now carried a constant stream of human vessels. Humanity learned from the technology you shared with us, Elena said. But we didn't simply copy what you had built. We improved it. We made it more efficient, more powerful, and more reliable. We applied our manufacturing techniques to problems that your species had solved with craftsmanship and artistry. Elena saw nods of understanding from some of the representatives. The galaxy had indeed been watching human technological development with growing interest and concern. The result, Elena continued, is that humanity now possesses the largest fleet in known space. But size is not the same as aggression, and power is not the same as threat. At this point, the hegemony representative stood up. General Thakamor was an imposing figure, standing nearly 10 feet tall with 4 arms and natural armor plating. His species had built their empire through military conquest, and they clearly saw humanity as a potential rival. Admiral Vasquez, Thakamor said in a voice like grinding stone, your species has militarized 7 star systems in 5 years. You have built more warships than the rest of the galaxy combined. How can you claim this is not aggressive expansion? Elena turned to face the hegemony general directly. General Thakamor, in those same 5 years, how many systems has the hegemony attempted to conquer? Thakamor's forearms twitched with what Elena recognized as anger. The hegemony brings order to chaotic regions. The hegemony has launched military campaigns against 6 different species in the past 5 years. Elena interrupted. 3 of those species no longer exist as independent civilizations. In contrast, humanity has never initiated hostilities against anyone. Every battle we have fought has been in defense of human colonies or in protection of other species from hegemony aggression. Elena gestured to the display, which now showed a tactical map of recent conflicts. Last year, when the hegemony attacked the Centauri colonies, it was human ships that drove off the invasion force. When the hegemony tried to blockade the Vegan trade routes, it was human vessels that broke the blockade and restored free commerce. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives recalled these incidents. Elena waited for the noise to die down before continuing. General Thakamor, your empire has spent the past 5 years trying to expand through conquest. Humanity has spent the same time building infrastructure, establishing trade relationships, and protecting smaller species from exactly the kind of aggression that the hegemony represents. Thakamor's armor plates were now glowing with anger, but he sat down without responding. Elena knew she had made her point. The High Arbitrator spoke again. Admiral Vasquez, while your defensive record is noted, the Council remains concerned about the pace of human expansion. No species in recorded history has built a fleet of this size so quickly. Elena nodded. High Arbitrator, that's because no species in recorded history has needed to. When the Zephyrians, the Centauri, the Altarians, and others first entered space, they found a galaxy where expansion was slow and methodical. They had time to develop their fleets gradually because there were no major threats. Elena paused for effect. Humanity entered a galaxy where aggressive empires like the hegemony were actively conquering smaller species. We built a large fleet quickly because we needed to in order to survive and to protect our allies. Trademaster HFY, who had been sitting quietly throughout the session, finally stood up. His crystal body was flickering with colors that Elena had learned indicated deep nervousness. "Admiral Vasquez," HFY said, "the consortium acknowledges that our initial assessment of humanity may have been incomplete. But surely your species must understand that such rapid military buildup creates fear among other civilizations." Elena looked at the Zephyrian trademaster who had started this entire chain of events. "Trademaster HFY, 5 years ago you came to Earth and offered us a choice: accept a position as a junior partner in the galactic community, or face the galaxy alone without protection. We chose a third option. We built our own protection." Elena walked closer to the center of the chamber. "But humanity has never sought to dominate others. Every species that has chosen to work with us has benefited from the relationship. Our technology has improved their manufacturing capabilities. Our ships have protected their trade routes. Our colonies have become markets for their goods." The display shifted to show economic data. Trade between human space and the rest of the galaxy has increased by 800% in 5 years. Human manufacturing techniques have been shared freely with any species that wanted to learn them. Human ships patrol trade routes that were once considered too dangerous for civilian traffic. Elena looked around the chamber. "Honored representatives, humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to trade with it, explore it, and help protect it from those who would use force to impose their will on others." The High Arbitrator leaned forward. "What are humanity's intentions going forward, Admiral?" Elena smiled. "High Arbitrator, humanity intends to continue doing exactly what we've been doing. We will continue to build ships because the galaxy is a dangerous place, and we have responsibilities to our allies. We will continue to expand because there are uninhabited systems that could support thriving colonies. And we will continue to defend ourselves and our friends from aggression, wherever that aggression comes from." Elena paused and looked directly at General Thakmore. "But we will also continue to offer partnership to any species that wants to work with us as equals. We believe the galaxy is big enough for everyone to prosper, as long as some people stop trying to take what belongs to others." The session continued for several more hours, with various representatives asking questions about human intentions, capabilities, and policies. But Elena could see that the tone of the discussion had changed. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity was not a threat to be contained, but a new power that needed to be accommodated. As the formal session ended, Elena was approached by several alien representatives who wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and technology sharing arrangements. The galaxy was adapting to the new reality that humanity represented. Later, as Elena prepared to return to Earth, she received a message from Admiral Chen, who is now the overall commander of Earth's military forces. Admiral Susan Morgan sat alone in her office on Luna Base, watching Earth through the reinforced window. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, too peaceful for what she was about to face. Her computer beeped. Another message from Terran, Outpost 7. This was the third one today, and each was more urgent than the last. She tapped the screen. The face of Commander Sam Wells appeared. His uniform was torn and dirty. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. "Admiral Morgan, they came without warning," he said. His voice shook. Behind him, people ran back and forth. Alarms blared. "They're not here to talk, they're killing everyone. 50,000 people, and they're just..." An explosion rocked the room behind him. The screen went black. Susan closed her eyes. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with aliens. The Zeraxians, they called themselves. Earth had sent messages of peace. The Zeraxians never replied. Now Susan knew why. She pressed a button on her desk. "Get me the Defense Council, now." 24 hours later, Susan stood before 12 grim-faced men and women. The United Defense Council represented every nation on Earth. They rarely agreed on anything. Today was different. The evidence is clear, Susan said. The Zeraxians have destroyed Terran Outpost 7. All 50,000 colonists are dead, and this isn't the first time they've done this. We've found the remains of at least 3 other civilizations they've wiped out. General Joe Adams leaned forward. What do they want? They want us gone, Susan said simply. They see all other life as competition. They find it, they kill it, they take the planets for themselves. The room fell silent. Then Maria Diaz, the council head, spoke. What are our options? Susan took a deep breath. We've run 1,000 simulations. The Zeraxians have more ships, more weapons, more experience with space warfare. In a conventional fight, we lose. Earth burns. Humanity ends. So what do we do? Joe asked. Susan tapped her tablet. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a massive ship, unlike any Earth had built before. Project Nemesis, she said. Our insurance policy. A warship we hoped we'd never need to use. Bill Patel, the science director, frowned. The Nemesis isn't ready. We haven't tested the Helios array. We're out of time, Susan said. The Zeraxians will find Earth next. When they do, they'll do to us what they did to Outpost 7. What they've done to who knows how many other species. Maria looked at each council member. We need to vote. Do we activate Project Nemesis? One by one, they said yes. Even Bill, after a long pause. Nobody wanted this. But nobody saw another way. 3 days later, Susan stood in a large underground hangar on the far side of the moon. Before her was the UEW Nemesis. It was huge, a mile long, shaped like a spear. Its black hull absorbed the light. It wasn't built to be seen. It was built to end threats. Captain William Hayes stood beside her. He was 45, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had commanded Earth ships for 20 years. Now he would command humanity's most powerful weapon. You understand your orders? Susan asked. Will nodded. Find the Zeraxian homeworld. Make sure they can never threaten us again. The council wanted me to remind you. This is about survival, not revenge. Will's face hardened. I watched the recordings from Outpost 7. They didn't just kill our people, they enjoyed it. Susan put her hand on his shoulder. Just remember who we are, Will, what we stand for. Don't become them to beat them. No promises, Will said quietly. They walked together to the ship's main entrance. A crew of 150 people waited there. Scientists, soldiers, engineers. The best Earth had to offer. Each had volunteered. Each knew they might never come home. Chief Science Officer Olivia Martinez stepped forward. The ship is ready, Admiral. All systems check out. Security Chief Alan Garcia stood beside her. My team is prepared for any contact. Susan looked at them all. You carry the hopes of Earth with you. Find the Zeraxians. Stop them. Come home if you can. Will saluted. We won't fail. As the crew boarded, Susan watched Olivia and Alan talking quietly. They didn't know she could hear them. Do you think it will work? Olivia asked. The Helios array? Alan shrugged. It better. If not, Earth is finished. Susan knew what the Helios array could do. It was a terrible weapon. It could make a star release massive solar flares that would scorch entire planets. Nothing would survive, not even the Zeraxians. An hour later, Susan stood in the control room as the massive doors above. The Nemesis slid open. Dust that had lain undisturbed for millions of years swirled in the emptiness of space. The Nemesis lifted slowly. Its engines glowed blue, then white. Then, with a flash that lit up the lunar surface, it was gone. The ship's wormhole drive had activated, sending it to the edge of the solar system in an instant. Back in her office, Susan watched the data feed. The Nemesis appeared near Neptune, paused to check its systems, then vanished again, heading toward where Outpost 7 had been, heading toward the Zeraxians. Susan looked back at Earth through her window. People down there were going about their lives, going to work, taking care of their children, falling in love. They didn't know how close they had come to extinction. They didn't know what humanity was about to do in their name. God help us all, she whispered. On the Nemesis, Will Hayes sat in the captain's chair. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. They were leaving everything they knew behind. They were going to war. Navigation, set course for the Proxima Centauri system, Will ordered. Let's pick up the Zeraxian trail. Keith Powell, the navigation specialist, entered the coordinates. Course set, Captain, wormhole drive charging. Will looked at the main screen. The stars waited. Somewhere out there, the enemy was moving, killing, planning to do the same to Earth. Execute, Will said. The Nemesis jumped into the darkness between the stars. The hunt had begun. The Nemesis emerged from the wormhole at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. The bridge crew watched the main screen as the star came into view, red and angry against the blackness of space. Scan for Zeraxian signals, Captain Will Hayes ordered. Communications Officer Lisa Ward nodded. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. Nothing yet, Captain. But there's something strange about the third planet. Will turned to Science Officer Olivia Martinez. What are we looking at? Olivia, studied her readings. The planet should be habitable. Our records show it had a thriving ecosystem. But now? She looked up, her face pale. It's dead, Captain. Everything on the surface is gone. Security Chief Alan Garcia stepped closer to the screen. Zeraxians? Looks like it, Olivia said. The atmospheric composition has been altered. It's being terraformed to suit their biology. Will's jaw tightened. How long ago? Based on the radiation decay, less than a month. Will turned to navigation specialist Keith Powell. Take us closer. Stealth mode. The Nemesis moved silently toward the dead world. As they approached, they could see massive machines on the surface pumping chemicals into the atmosphere. No sign of Zeraxian ships, Lisa reported. They've moved on, Will said. They kill, they terraform, then they leave the machines to finish the job. Olivia was still scanning the surface. Captain, I'm detecting biological samples in what appears to be a research facility. The Zeraxians are studying what they killed. Can we retrieve them? Will asked. Olivia nodded. It would help me understand their biology better. Will turned to Alan. Prepare a recovery team, full containment protocols. 4 hours later, Alan returned with sealed containers. He handed them to Olivia. Be careful with these, he said. The place was like a slaughterhouse. They're experimenting on the native species. Olivia took the containers to her lab. Will followed her. What do you think? He asked as she began her analysis. Their biology is silicon-based, she said. They breathe nitrogen instead of oxygen. That's why they're changing the atmosphere. She looked up at Will. They can't live on our worlds without terraforming them first. And we can't survive on theirs, Will said. So there's no chance of sharing. None. Olivia looked at the samples. There's something else. Their neural structure suggests a hive mind of sorts. They're connected to each other. Like a collective consciousness? More like a hierarchy. Many drones, fewer thinkers, and probably a central mind controlling it all. Will considered this. So if we find the central mind, we might be able to stop them all. Will left Olivia to her work and returned to the bridge. Keith, set course for the next system. Let's follow their trail. The Nemesis jumped from system to system. At each stop they found the same thing. Dead worlds, terraforming machines, no Zeraxians. It was like following a path of destruction through the stars. In the fifth system, they finally found what they were looking for. Zeraxian ships detected, Lisa called out. 3 vessels in orbit around the 4th planet. Battle stations, Will ordered. The lights on the bridge dimmed to red. Stealth approach. I want to get close before they know we're here. The crew moved with practiced precision. They had drilled for this moment for weeks. The Nemesis glided silently toward the Zeraxian vessels. Their Smaller than I expected, Alan said, studying the tactical display. The alien ships were sleek and silver, about a quarter the size of the Nemesis. What are they doing? Will asked. Lisa listened to her earpiece. They're communicating with the surface. Sounds like they're directing the terraforming operation. Any defense systems active? Alan checked his readings. Standard shields. No weapons powered up. They don't know we're here. Will stood. This is our chance to see what they're capable of. Weapons officer, target the smallest ship. Conventional missiles only. I don't want to use the Helios array unless we have to. Weapons officer Greg Simmons nodded. Target locked, Captain. Fire. The Nemesis shuddered slightly as the missiles launched. They crossed the distance to the Zeraxian ship in seconds. The alien vessel had no time to react. The missiles hit its hull, breaking it apart. The other two Zeraxian ships immediately powered up their weapons. They turned toward where the missiles had come from, trying to find the Nemesis. They can't see us yet, Alan reported. Their scanning technology isn't as advanced as ours. Return fire, Will ordered. Let's see what they've got. The Zeraxian ships fired energy weapons that lit up space around them. The beams passed harmlessly through empty space, missing the Nemesis by miles. Their targeting systems are basic, Alan said. They're firing blindly. Target the second ship, Will ordered. Same weapons. Greg fired again. The second Zeraxian ship exploded into fragments. The third ship suddenly accelerated, moving away from the planet. They're trying to run. Lisa said. Not yet, Will said. Greg, disable their engines. I want that ship intact. Greg fired a precise shot. The Zeraxian ship's engines died. It drifted helplessly in space. Prepare a boarding party, Will said to Alan. I want their navigation data. We need to find their homeworld. Alan led a team of 6 to the Zeraxian ship. They wore sealed suits to protect them from the alien atmosphere. The boarding was quick. The Zeraxians fought, but Earth weapons cut through them easily. Alan returned an hour later with a data core. We got it, he said. Their entire navigational database. Olivia and Lisa worked together to decode it. The bridge was tense as they waited. Finally, Olivia looked up. We have it, she said. 7 major colony worlds plus their homeworld, Xarax Prime. Will studied the star map that appeared on the main screen. The Zeraxian Empire spread across 20 light years, billions of them on 8 worlds. And they're all making weapons, Lisa added. Their communications indicate they're building a massive fleet. They're planning to expand again soon. In our direction? Will asked. Yes, Lisa said quietly. They know about Earth now. They're coming for us. Will stared at the map. 8. Worlds full of beings that would kill every human without hesitation. Beings that had destroyed countless other species already. He touched the image of Xarax Prime. Set course for their nearest colony world, he said. We need to see what we're up against before we hit their homeworld. As the Nemesis prepared to jump, Will went to his quarters. He recorded a message for Admiral Morgan. We've found them, he said. And they're worse than we thought. They're coming for Earth, Susan. Billions of them. We can't fight them all. We might have to use the array. He paused, thinking about what that meant. The Helios array could destroy an entire planet. Everyone on it. God help me, he whispered. But I'll do what needs to be done. The Nemesis hung in space, just outside the range of the Zeraxian colony world sensors. Captain Will Hayes stood on the bridge, looking at the planet on the main screen. It glowed with city lights and orbital stations. Billions of Zeraxians lived there, going about their lives. How many ships in orbit? Will asked. Alan checked his display. 47 warships plus hundreds of smaller vessels. More than we can fight directly. Will nodded slowly. And their defenses? Standard. Shields around major cities. Nothing that could stop the Helios array. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what they were considering. Using the array meant killing an entire world. Even if they were aliens who wanted to destroy humanity, the thought was hard to accept. Captain, Chief Medical Officer Richard Taylor said quietly. We should consider other options. Target their military installations, their fleet yards. We don't need to kill civilians. Will turned to Intelligence Officer Nancy Kim. What's your assessment? Nancy's face was grim. I've analyzed their communications. They're building weapons specifically designed to attack Earth. Not just military targets, they plan to wipe out all life. Men, women, children. They don't see us as people, just competition to be eliminated. Like they did with Outpost 7, Lisa added. And all those other species we found evidence of. Will called a meeting in the ship's conference room. All senior officers attended. For 2 hours, they debated what to do. Richard argued passionately for restraint. If we use the array, we're no better than they are. We become the monsters. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Johnson disagreed. If we don't stop them now, Earth burns. It's that simple. They've shown no mercy to anyone. Will listened to all sides. He felt the weight of the decision crushing him. Billions of lives against billions of lives. No good choices. Finally, he spoke. I've heard everyone's views. Thank you. But the decision is mine. He looked around the table. We didn't start this war. We didn't ask for it. But we will finish it. He stood up. We'll use the array against all 7 colony worlds, then proceed to their homeworld. We'll end the Xeraxian threat completely. The room was silent. No one liked the decision, but they understood it. We strike in 6 hours, Will said. Prepare the array. Back on the bridge, systems engineer Frank Lewis worked at his station, programming the Helios array. His hands shook slightly. The array is ready, Captain, he reported, targeting their star. The pulse will trigger solar flares that will hit the planet in waves. Nothing will survive. Will looked at the clock. 5 minutes until they were in position. 5 minutes until they crossed a line humanity had never crossed before. Captain, Olivia said, I've been studying more of the Xeraxian data. There's something you should see. She brought up images on the screen. They showed Xeraxians torturing other alien species, experimenting on them, dissecting them while they were still alive. They do this on every world they conquer, Olivia said. It's not just war to them. They enjoy the suffering. Will felt sick, but also more certain. Thank you, Olivia. I needed to see that. The clock reached 0. The Nemesis was in position. Will took a deep breath. For Earth, he said quietly. For humanity. Then louder. Execute. Frank pressed his hand against the activation panel. The Nemesis shuddered slightly as the Helios array fired. A beam of energy, invisible to the naked eye, shot toward the Yao star at the center of the system. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star pulsed, brighter than before. On the surface, massive storms of plasma began to form. First wave of solar flares will hit the planet in 3 hours, Olivia reported. Will nodded. Keep us at safe distance. I want visual confirmation. For 3 hours, the bridge crew waited in tense silence. Then the first flare hit the planet. Even from a distance, they could see the atmosphere light up, burning away in places as the radiation struck. Their shields are failing, Alan reported. Their ships are trying to escape. Cut them off, Will ordered. No survivors. The Nemesis moved to intercept the fleeing ships. Those that got too close were destroyed by conventional weapons. The key. Rest were caught in the next wave of flares. Hour by hour, the planet died. The sensors showed Xeraxian life signs fading by the millions, then billions. By the end of the day, the world was silent. Nothing lived there anymore. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence. They had just committed an act that would have been unimaginable only months before. Will looked at their faces, shocked, horrified, but also resolute. Record it all, he said to Lisa. Every detail. Humanity needs to know what we did here. What we had to do. He went to his quarters and recorded another message for Admiral Morgan. First target eliminated, he said, his voice hollow. The array works exactly as designed. God help us all. He tried to sleep but couldn't. Images of the dying planet filled his mind. He knew it was necessary. He knew the Zeraxians would have done the same to Earth without a second thought. But still. The next morning, the senior officers gathered again. Will looked at each of them. "Are we still resolved?" he asked. "There are 6 more colonies before we reach their homeworld." Nancy showed them new intelligence. "The Zeraxians know what happened. They're panicking, rushing to complete their fleet. If we stop now, they'll come for Earth with everything they have." Patricia nodded. "We've crossed the line. We can't go back." "The crew is struggling," Richard reported. "Many have requested transfers to sections where they can't see the destruction. Some can't sleep." Will understood. "Denied. We must all bear witness to what necessity has made us become." He stood up. "Set course for the next colony. We continue as planned." As the Nemesis prepared to jump to the next system, Will stood alone on the observation deck looking at the dead world. Once it had been home to billions. Now it was ash. "Survival has its price," he whispered to himself. "And we'll pay it." So, that Earth never has to. The ship jumped, leaving behind the first graveyard of the Zeraxian species. 6 more waited ahead. And then their homeworld. Will knew he would never be the same after this mission. None of them would. But Earth would survive. That was all that mattered now. 3 more Zeraxian worlds had fallen. Each time the Nemesis had arrived, deployed the Helios array and watched as a planet died. 3 more entries in the ship's log. 3 more nightmares for the crew to carry. Captain Will Hayes sat in his quarters reviewing reports. The door chimed. "Enter," he said. Communications Officer Lisa Ward stepped in. She looked tired. They all did now. "Captain, we've intercepted something interesting," she said. "The Zeraxians are sending encrypted messages between their remaining colonies. They're trying to negotiate." Will looked up. "Negotiate? They've never tried to communicate before." "It's different now. They've lost 4 worlds. They're afraid." Will followed Lisa to the bridge. First Officer Linda Rogers was already there, studying the messages. "They're offering to stay away from Earth," Linda said. "They say they'll leave human space alone if we stop attacking them." "Can we trust them?" Will asked. Nancy Kim shook her head. "No. I've decoded more of their internal communications. This is a delay tactic." She brought up diagrams on the screen. "They're building this, a device designed to neutralize the Helios array. They just need more time to complete it." Will studied the images. "How long until it's operational?" "Based on their current progress, 2 weeks at most." Will's jaw tightened. "Then we don't have 2 weeks. Set course for their 5th colony world, maximum speed." As the Nemesis prepared to jump, engineering reported a problem. One of the wormhole drive's stabilizers was failing. Without it, the ship couldn't safely make another jump after this one. "How long to repair it?" Will asked. "At least 10 hours?" Reactor specialist Paul Bennett replied. "Maybe longer." Will didn't like it. "That puts us on a tight schedule. We'll have to hit the 5th and 6th worlds quickly, then make the final jump to Xerex Prime before they can finish their countermeasure." The Nemesis jumped to the 5th colony world. The Zeraxians were waiting. 50 ships in defensive formation, Allen reported. "They've consolidated their fleet." "They're learning," Will said. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us into position for the array." The battle was fierce. Zeraxian weapons fire rocked the Nemesis. Damage reports came in from all decks. 3 crew members died when a power conduit exploded. But the human ship was designed for this. Its shields held. Its weapons tore through the Zeraxian vessels. And finally it reached the position it needed. The Helios array fired again. Another star was weaponized. Another world died. Paul worked frantically to repair the wormhole drive. "The damage is worse than we thought," he reported. "We need to reroute power through the secondary systems." "How long?" Will asked. 8 more hours, maybe 10. "We don't have 10 hours. The Zeraxians are already moving their fleet to protect their 6th world." Paul thought for a moment. "There's another way. I can manually regulate the power flow from inside the reactor chamber. It'll cut the repair time in half." "The radiation levels in there are lethal," Will said. Paul nodded. I know, but it's the only way to get to Xerax Prime before they can deploy their countermeasure. Will looked at the man. Paul was 32. He had a family back on Earth. Are you sure? Yes, sir. My family will be on Earth when the Xeraxians arrive if we fail. I'd rather die here than let that happen. Will clasped his shoulder. Earth will remember your sacrifice. 4 hours later, the wormhole drive was back online. Paul Bennett was dead, his body stored in the ship's morgue. They would take him home when this was over. The Nemesis jumped to the 6th colony world. This time there was no resistance. The Xeraxians had pulled their fleet back to defend their homeworld. The array fired. The 6th world fell. By now, the process had become routine. That scared Will more than anything. How easily they had adapted to destroying entire planets. Final. Jump preparations complete, Keith reported. Course set for Xerax Prime. Wait, Lisa said suddenly. I'm picking up a transmission. It's directed at us specifically. Put it through, Will ordered. A harsh clicking sound filled the bridge. The universal translator processed it, turning it into words everyone could understand. Humans, the voice said. We recognize you now as worthy adversaries. We assumed you were weak like the others. We were wrong. This is Captain William Hayes of the UEW Nemesis. Are you offering surrender? No. We are offering knowledge. We have encountered 37 species capable of interstellar travel. You are the first to fight back effectively. The first to make us fear. This makes you worthy. Worthy of what? Worthy of joining us. Becoming like us. The strong survive by eliminating the weak. This is the law of the universe. You have proven your strength. Will's face hardened. We're nothing like you. We don't kill for the sake of killing, don't you? 6 worlds, billions of lives, you did this without hesitation. We did it to survive. You gave us no choice. And that is why you are like us. Survival at any cost. We respect this. Join us, and together we will cleanse the galaxy of the unworthy. We'll cut the transmission. The bridge was silent. They don't understand us at all, Linda said quietly. Or they understand us too well, Will replied. He turned to his crew. This changes. Nothing. We finished the mission. The Nemesis made its final jump, emerging near Xerax Prime. The Xeraxian homeworld was heavily defended. Hundreds of ships formed a protective shell around the planet. They've deployed their countermeasure, Olivia reported. It's creating a field that should block the array's energy pulse from reaching their star. Can we get through it? Will asked. Olivia studied the readings. Maybe. The field has a frequency. If we recalibrate the array to match it exactly, we might be able to create a resonance effect that would collapse the field. Do it, Will ordered. The Xeraxian fleet moved to attack. The Nemesis took heavy damage. Life support failed on 3 decks. Half the crew was dead or injured. Array recalibrated, Olivia shouted over the noise of battle. But we need to get closer to their star. Will nodded. All power to forward shields. Take us in. The Nemesis pushed through the Xeraxian fleet, taking hit after hit. Systems failed across the ship. The hull breached in 2 places. We're in position, Keith said. Fire, Will ordered. The array fired one last time. For a moment it seemed like it had failed. The countermeasure field glowed brightly, absorbing the energy. Then the field collapsed. The pulse reached the star. Massive flares began to form. The Xeraxian fleet scattered in panic. The Nemesis, damaged but still functional, began its long journey home. As they left the system, a final message came from the planet below. You have become us, the Xeraxian leader said. Remember that, as you watch us die. Will didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. 6 months had passed since the Nemesis had fired its weapons at Xerax Prime. 6 months of limping through space, making repairs, and counting the dead. Of the original crew of 150, only 73 remained alive. Captain Will Hayes stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. His hair had gone completely gray. Deep lines marked his face. He looked like a man who had aged 20 years in less than one. The door opened behind him. Linda Rogers entered, carrying a datapad. "Final report," she said, handing it to him. "Engineering has the wormhole drive working at 60% capacity. It'll get us home, but it'll take 3 more jumps." Will nodded. "And the crew?" Linda's face was grim. "Not good. Richard says cases of severe depression and PTSD have doubled in the last month. Nightmares, flashbacks. Some can't sleep at all. Tell him to do what he can. We'll all get proper help when we reach Earth." Linda hesitated. "Do you think there will be help for what we've done?" Will had asked himself that question many times. "I don't know, but we did what was necessary. What was right. Did we?" Linda looked out at the stars. 8 planets. Trillions of lives. Even if they were our enemies, they would have done the same to us, Will said firmly. They did the same to countless other species. "I know. But that Zeraxian's last words keep haunting me. You have become us." What if he was right? Will had no answer. The words haunted him too. 3 weeks later, the Nemesis made its final jump, entering Earth's solar system. The crew gathered on the bridge, watching as the blue planet came into view. Home. The thing they had fought for. The reason they had become killers. "Opening communications with Luna Base," Lisa said. Admiral Susan Morgan's face appeared on the screen. She looked older too, but her eyes lit up when she saw them. "Captain Hayes, it's good to see you alive." "Admiral, mission accomplished. The Zeraxian threat has been eliminated." Susan nodded solemnly. "At great cost, I understand. 77 dead. And the rest of us?" Will trailed off. "I know," Susan said softly. "We've been preparing. Medical teams are standing by. And Will, there's something else you should know." The screen changed, showing images of alien ships near Earth, but they weren't attacking, they were just waiting. "What is this?" Will asked. "They started arriving 2 months ago. 17 different species. All of them were facing extinction at the hands of the Zeraxians." Susan's face returned to the screen. "They heard what the Nemesis did. Word spread faster than we thought possible." "How?" "We didn't contact anyone. The Zeraxians weren't the only ones monitoring their colonies. These species were watching, hiding, hoping for a miracle." Susan's expression was complex, proud but troubled. "You're being hailed as heroes, Will. Saviors of more than just humanity." Will didn't feel like a hero. Neither did his crew, from the looks on their faces. The Nemesis docked at Luna Base the next day. Medical teams took the injured. Counselors went with the rest. The debriefings lasted weeks. Every detail recorded, every decision analyzed. The ship itself was placed in a special orbit around Earth, not to be used again, but as a monument, a reminder. 1 month after their return, Will stood in front of the United Defense Council. The same people who had authorized the mission now had to deal with its consequences. "The Zeraxians have been eliminated," Will reported formally. "Their worlds are uninhabitable. Their species is extinct." "And the psychological impact on your crew?" Maria Diaz asked. "Severe. They did what was needed, but the cost was high." Joe Adams spoke next. "And what about you, Captain?" Will considered the question. "I'll live with what I've done. Every day, for the rest of my life." The room fell silent. Then Bill Patel asked the question they all wanted answered. "Would you do it again?" Will didn't hesitate. "Yes." "To save Earth?" "Yes." After the debriefing, Will met with Susan in her office. The same office where she had given him his orders, what felt like a lifetime ago. "What happens now?" he asked. Susan looked out the window, at Earth. "We rebuild. We learn. We make contact with those 17 species. They want to talk peace, exchange knowledge, maybe form some kind of alliance. Because they're grateful? Or because they're afraid of us now? Both, probably." Susan turned to him. "Your actions changed humanity's place in the galaxy, Will. For better or worse, we're now seen as a major power, a species not to be crossed. Will didn't like the sound of that. Is that who we want to be? The ones everyone fears? It's who we need to be, sometimes. To survive. Susan placed a hand on his shoulder. But it's not all we are. Or all we can be. Will nodded slowly. I hope you're right. 20 years passed, Earth flourished. The alliance with the other species grew stronger. Knowledge was shared. Trade established. Humanity expanded cautiously into the stars. Will Hayes lived quietly on a small farm in Montana. He rarely gave interviews. He never accepted medals. The nightmares still came, but less often now. One evening, as the sun set, he sat on his porch writing in a journal. It was something his therapist had suggested long ago, a way to process what had happened, what he had done. The stars represent our highest aspirations, he wrote. Now they also bear witness to our darkest deed. We did what we believed necessary. May future generations understand, and may they find a better way. He closed the journal and looked up at the darkening sky. Soon the stars would appear. Somewhere out there, 8 worlds lay dead, a species wiped from existence. By his hand, but Earth lived. Humanity survived. That had been the mission after all. As night fell fully, Will went inside. On his desk was a letter, an invitation to speak at the academy, to tell new cadets about the nemesis, about choices, about consequences. He hadn't decided if he would go. What could he tell them? That survival sometimes requires terrible deeds? That the line between defender and destroyer was thinner than anyone wanted to believe, perhaps? But he would also tell them something else. Something he had learned too late, that becoming like your enemy might ensure survival. But it might also be the greatest defeat of all,